Good afternoon. Thanks for coming to this session. We are going to have a very stimulating conversation. I hand selected these three amazing humans sitting up here because I wanted to, in a time where we've heard a lot today about trauma, job trauma, as well as the silver linings and people start coming out of it. Well, the folks I have up here have come out of and have had trauma experience in jobs, but they also are badass executive level humans now, and we're in through the process, don't get me wrong. And so I thought I want to have them share their stories, and also I want to talk security because each of them have their own specific focus within security. We know there's lots of different roles in security, so I want to hear. I'm asking them very specific, crafted questions to bring all of this out. So I first would like everybody to introduce themselves briefly, and then you'll get to know more about them as we go. Again, Deidre Diamond, founder and CEO of CyberSN, and also founder of Secure Diversity. And so it's a pleasure to be with you all. Thank you, Reddit. We love you. Woohoo! Woohoo! Beautiful offices. We're enjoying it here. It's been a great day. We had a great lunch, and so many wonderful relationships are starting. So let's get back to the knowledge sharing piece of all of this. So Lisa, why don't you kick us off, and then we'll go to your left. Yeah. Push the button. There you go.
I do technology. My name is Lisa Hall. I'm currently CISO at a company called SafeBase. Prior to that, I was CISO at Color Health, and then I headed security at a place called PagerDuty for about 3.5 years. And happy to be here.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Yogita. You can call me Yogi or Yogita. I have been in cyber since 1996, before the word cyber, GRC, any of those existed. And been head of security multiple times. Now I am a founder of a cloud AI security company.
Woohoo!
Hi, my name is Chloe Mustagi, and I am the head of threat intelligence at Hidden Layer. And what I do is I secure AI, and I work with fabulous people, and I also help on the policy side of things.
Awesome. So as you can see, we've got experience up here. And as I mentioned earlier, if you weren't here, you know, challenges of job searching or imposter syndrome existed before this shit show that we're in. So know that, which is why they have stories too in their past. So we'll get to it. But first I want to start with lessons, right? Like wisdom is experience. And I know with my wisdom, wow, if I had known these things, I would have maybe made some different choices in my life. In fact, I would have been a Supreme Court justice without a damn, there's no doubt in my mind, because that's where all the shit goes down. That's where everything gets decided. But I didn't know that, so it's not happening. And some young woman asked me today, should I get a law degree? I said, hell yeah, and please become a Supreme Court justice. So that's my, you know, what I would have done differently. I would like, let's start with you, Chloe, and then we'll come this way. What would you have done differently? Now you're in the wisdom stage. I know a lot of people think you're 20, and that's really annoying for all of us that I guess can seem to look younger, but at the end of the day, you're not, and you've got a lot of wisdom. What would you have done differently?
I think one of the things that I struggled the most with was trying to force my way to feel like I belong somewhere. So meaning going into a room and not feeling like I belong here, so I get quiet. And one of the things I realized was that I was only hurting myself at that time, but also I need to find male allies. And so what I would do is before going into a meeting, I always would find like that one white guy to be in the room to make sure I'll be like, hey, if I say something, can you echo it for me? If someone takes my idea, can you say, oh, well, that's just what Chloe just said. And that actually helped me significantly because whenever I walk in the room, there's many times where it's just men, I'm either ignored, dismissed. And it's such an annoying thing because it will mess you up mentally because think about it. If no one's listening to you and you're in that room, you're being ignored. Then you start thinking, do I belong here? Do I bring value here? And that's when you start having that feelings of imposter syndrome, which you should never be having in this industry, but it exists.
I love that that's an actual skill, an implementation of something that we must do. Because, I mean, if we think about it, our minds, we operate on the subconscious mind, men, women, all of us. It's like very rarely are we conscious. So by you telling a man, hey, help me out, they actually probably weren't even thinking about the need of it. There's so many great men out there that do want to help us, but it doesn't mean that their conscious mind is awake to the problem. So I love this. I've never
Yeah,
heard of
it's usually not even conscious about. So
Yeah.
anytime I'm like telling anyone that's a guy and they're like, what can I be to be an ally? Be that one guy in the room that will repeat. And even women can do this for other women too. Okay. Don't be one of those women that doesn't do things that helps us all, you know?
Yeah.
Like you can also do that too. If there isn't a guy that you feel you trust, you can always go for a woman too, or anyone who respects you and you respect them.
I love it. I love it. That's great advice. Yogita, what would you say is one of the best lessons or hardest things you had to figure out that you'd want to share?
Oh, hardest things I had to figure out?
Yeah, or lesson you want to share. The wish you could do something differently in the past. What would it have been?
Mm. Two different questions, but
Yes.
I
Yes, they are. I combined two. You're
Oh,
exactly right.
something that I can
Have it
talk
right
about
there.
both of them for a long time. What I would what I would do differently is I think subconsciously I always had a role model. My mom was a role model for me. Okay? She was a working woman, not just a working woman. She was a doctor, and she became a doctor in the 1960s. So she became a chief medical officer towards the end of the career. She was the head of a hospital. So I always had a role model. Okay. Subconsciously, I also probably followed a little bit of. Uh, so I never really knew about discrimination actually growing up, uh, believe it or not. I grew up in a family where me and my brother, we were both treated equals. We were both allowed to be ambitious as we wanted to be. And I never really, maybe that's what made me naive and not really ready for the onslaught that happened after I became pregnant. That's when it hit me. Oh my God, yeah, this is different. Now I cannot, as an ambitious person, I was a workaholic. I worked till 7, 8 o'clock. And I realized that I have to slow down a little bit. If I am being told that the best thing for my baby is, and sorry, this is not getting recorded, right? If the best thing for a baby is breastfeeding, right? Then you cannot travel
Right.
for a year. So there are things that are different for us. Whatever you say or do, for certain periods of time, they are different, right? And now I wish I had spoken more to my mom, how she dealt with it, right? What did she do? The amazing part was, and having been raised this way, and because my husband is also raised this way, he always had a working mom, I always had his support. I wish I could have just used it a little bit more. There was a meme going around, if you know, that you're shackled to a, the horse is just kept, the rope around the neck is just on the chair. The horse could have run anyway, run away. What is that plastic chair not going to hold it? So it's sometimes in your head, right? Yeah, that I have to, some of it is real, but it can be managed. And some of it is in our heads.
Yes, just our own brain telling us not nice things is a problem for us all. I too have the same story. Anybody here have the same story that I didn't know there was a problem for women? How awful is that? I didn't learn until I see some hands going up. It didn't hit me until my 40s. I'm in my 50s now. And it was when I founded CyberSN and everybody started calling, like, how could you found a tech company? Where did you get the money? Well, I'm like, what the fuck? Who's that? Why am I getting asked these questions? I've never asked a man that started a company in tech what any of those questions. And then that's when it hit me. And I worked for the same men for 21 years that hired me out of college across 3 different companies. And so I have this totally different story, which is why I'm up here fighting, going, this is not going to continue. But to that point, great family, didn't feel it. And so it seems like others here. And, had we known, again, Supreme Court justice, lots of things, right? Women's rights with children and employment, we could have been further along. So, well, here we are, right? We're going to speak up, and now we're powerful and we can make a difference. We founded a badass cloud infrastructure company. You figured it out. But we want to help the other generations not have to figure it out so much and give the confidence, or even just doesn't matter what generation you are, give you the confidence to know that you can get through all of these hurdles that are pushed our way, especially motherhood. I didn't birth children. I also say that on a regular basis. If I had children, would I have this career? How ridiculous, So fill us in. How about you? What's your wisdom advice for everybody these days from your career stories?
Well, first, yes to all of these things. I think, my parents were my first role models and best role models. So I think I had that as a foundation for sure. And your story just makes me think of this one time before I was realizing all the politics and just work in general and working at a corporate place. And just I'm just doing my job. And I was talking to a customer and explaining security things to them. Actually, someone here, Karen, you know this story. I used to work with her. But yeah, so they were like, oh, explain these security things. How are you secure? And big customers talking to me. And I'm like, well, here's why, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, not buying it. And the guy next to me literally said, on purpose, said, as Lisa said, and repeated exactly what I said word by word. And they were like, okay, cool. And I was like, wait, what? Did this really just happen? But yeah, it happened. So what I would do differently, I think, probably just advocate for myself more. So I kind of always had this in my mind, my work will speak for itself. I do a good job. Someone's going to notice this because this is some really good stuff right here. And really finding my sponsors. I think I took a really long time to really dig into oh, sponsorship is a good thing. People can help you get where you need to be. And it's not just, especially in security, because generally we are kind of end up being siloed, and it takes a little bit more to bring that visibility. So that would be my thing, not just sitting there thinking, well, this is good and I spent a lot of time and I am smart and I know this, so obviously someone's going to notice it.
Yeah, I think we all had to get that rude awakening for sure, that if I'm going to be my best advocate. It came a lot harder than it needs to. And so, yes. And, with our work speaking for us, it does speak for us. We also need to have measurable agreements for what our work is going to get us. And I think that's one of the best ways we can also advocate for ourselves, is have measurable agreements around our careers. And that means managing up, which is, a bit of a challenge, and yet it can be done. I mean, I like to believe that most managers don't do it because they don't have the time, not because they're not interested in supporting people's career development. So if you take it into your own hands, make measurable agreements, can make a difference. I like to advocate for yourself. I love that. So we've got common stories here of parents, and Chloe, I know you didn't mention your mom, or Chloe. We were doing a lot of name pronunciations of how wrong we've all been calling each other for how many damn years. But anyhow, I know your mother's a very successful woman in tech too. And so look at that, right? So the conversation is, we need role models. We need them young. We need them at all ages. This is a big reason why we do Day of Security, for that purpose. It is a lot easier when we see people that we can relate to doing these jobs. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the jobs you're doing now. The passion has to be there. I know all 3 of you have passion for what you're doing right now. And look at me, I'm losing my eyesight. Then I don't want to be accused of 2 questions in one. I'm just kidding. So talk to me, and Yogita, why don't you start? We'll start in the middle now, just switch it up, about your favorite career story and success story. And we talk a lot about the hardships. Let's talk about the successes, the things that you've just are really glad happened to you, or you made happen. Excuse me, let me correct my language.
All right. Well, it's a series of things that has
Lots
led
of
to
them.
this. again, sometimes being not holding yourself back. I'll give one story. This was way early in my career. I mentioned 1996, I started in cyber. I was actually the fifth person to join Ernst & Young's nationwide practice for cybersecurity. And so we were just figuring out what is security, what are the services, who are we selling those to. So we had this big strategy meeting in the Ritz, right? Okay, what are we exactly selling? Who are we selling to, right? What is the industry, target market, etc. We came back to office and we were just looking at each other. Okay, so now what?
You do it.
How do you do it?
Yeah.
So again, the naive part of me and the weird part of me, I just picked up the phone that time, called the board number for one of the top banks in the country, and I said, who is your CIO? There was no websites and management teams listed then. Like, who's your CIO? Oh, all right, so and so. Next phone call. Can I speak? I'm so and so. Can I speak to your CIO? I want to talk about security. They transferred me. I spoke to the CIO. I was in front of the CIO, talked about them, fully negotiated the whole contract, got the deal. I think that was my huge moment when I realized, oh my God, what did I do?
Yeah.
This was 25 plus years ago.
Yeah. Gave you power.
Totally.
Totally. And I bet you didn't even know you were doing a sales
Did
sales
not
work.
realize that. I didn't know what I was
Yeah,
doing.
yeah,
right?
yeah.
We needed a business.
Yeah. I love this point because I came up through sales and I'm
Yeah.
constantly telling all the practitioners you're all in sales
Yeah.
because your ability to move the needle on revenue, your ability to protect revenue, your ability to speak revenue is business and you're in business and you happen to be having whatever title you have, it all comes back to that. And so yeah, it makes sense as to why your career's been so powerful. You were connected to the money. And it is no joke of a place to be because money talks, and we know the saying, right? Nothing else does, unfortunately, and for most organizations. And so that's a yeah. And thank goodness it happened way back then, right? It's yeah, yeah. I love it. You're all in sales, which means we all have to communicate well. It's okay. You know, the other thing I loved about what you said, and I want to point it out, is you called people. I know that sounds weird to everybody today. Like when I came into business, that's all we did is call people, call people, call people. I'd suggest that you do as much as speaking versus digital communication in your business practices as you can. It's a totally different game. It makes things easier. People aren't as rude or exclusive or all of those things. So, remember, picking up the phone can still happen. We can still do that. I would encourage it. All right, Lisa, talk to us. What are your great stories?
Actually, I was just waiting to hear when that turned into social engineering. I was like, what'd you do next? And then when you got a hold of the CIO, what'd you do?
What'd you say?
I tricked him. I think the things I think fondly upon when I look back upon my career too are the times where I actually have helped people mostly. And I know that folks who have helped me throughout my career and my sponsors, I understand that is part of why I'm here. And maybe if I didn't get those opportunities, I would be somewhere else. So I love to look back and see where folks are now and be like, oh, yay, I'm so glad that that worked out for them, or I took a chance on them, or recognizing talent and really trying to help. Because sponsorship is an interesting thing. Like we talk about mentorship and sponsorship, and your sponsors are the people who are they're taking a risk on you, right? And you're using your political capital to kind of say, hey, I believe in this person. Here's why. Here's why they should have a promotion. Where mentorship, you can be a little bit oh, maybe it's somebody you work with, maybe not. It's a little more casual. But the folks that I'm using the work I've done and saying, I also believe this person can do it. So I love when those people come through and they're like, yep, they just kill it. You're like, look where you are now.
Well, and everybody should know this. When I'm was at a luncheon about a year ago that Lisa put together. It was an evening thing. And I walked in and it was for women and it was part of Day of Security, wasn't it? And,
Oh
and
no,
non-binary. What the
I
hell was
just
that?
put it together with
just-
another female founder,
Yeah.
and I started it, and we got a group of women in security together in Oakland and had a dinner.
And it was badass. And every woman was like, Lisa hired me in the past. Lisa hired me in the past. Lisa hired me in the past. And I was like, I went up to her and I was like, you are a social servant. I love you. She's also on the advisory board for Day of Security. So she's not, doesn't surprise me that you're choosing that as your successes because you have rocked that. There is nothing more rewarding than paying it forward and helping our fellow sisters and non-binary siblings. I condone you for that a lot. So thank you. Yeah. And these are people that are in high power positions today with all the brand name companies you all know. So you've done a great job there. All right, Chloe, tell us your fun success stories. And we'll get into the bad shit again.
I promise the beginning sucks, but it gets better. So I would say in 2017 was the first year I was in cybersecurity, and that first year was, I guess it would actually be 2018 if you think about it, would be one full year. And I absolutely hated the industry. I'm not going to lie. I thought it was the worst industry for women, for people of color. I thought like this is the industry that needs like laws in place because things were so bad. And I didn't feel like I belonged. I was so tired of being treated like it was the 1940s in an office and hearing like racist, sexist things so often. It was so gross. And I was like, I'm done. I never want to be in this industry again. I'm going back into like, I don't know, some other industry that I was thinking about being in. And then I had two colleagues who's like, oh, I know you said you're leaving and you are already started your journey of leaving the industry. However, there's this free conference in San Francisco called Day of Security. You should go and attend it. Hell no, I'm not doing it. I'm out. I don't want to do this anymore. Just go. It's free. What else are you gonna do? You don't have a job right now. Go to it. And I'm like, fine. So I went, and it was the first time ever I was in a room full of people that I felt like I belonged with. Because anywhere I was in my first year, it was always white men. So I never felt safe. And I had reasons why. And I remember leaving that conference and feeling so energized and empowered because I knew, oh crap, I'm not alone. And that was the game-changing moment, was knowing I wasn't alone anymore. And that very night, I couldn't sleep. I had an idea for a talk, and I'm like, I'm going to submit this talk to like Las Vegas. Apparently, that's where everyone goes. And I submitted this talk. It got accepted. And I decided like, okay, well, I want to stay in this industry. You know what? They can't kick me out. I'm not going to stay out. I'm going to go in. I'm going to give myself one more year to make this happen. And in that first year, and I mean, going in that summer in Las Vegas, I had a plan. I got to Las Vegas and everything was covered because, besides Las Vegas, if you volunteer, free room. So I had a free room. I then talked to some other people and they're like, I'll get you a hotel stay for DEF CON and I'll get you a DEF CON ticket. And I'm like, great. So I volunteered a lot and I got free everything that week. And I socially engineered my way to get a job at Bug Crowd. This was the company I wanted to work with. I wanted to be more with the hacker community. So I'm like, I'm going to go work for Bug Crowd. And I finally got into one of the events and I saw the founder, Casey. And I remember this and I went up to him. And then by the end of the night, basically, they're like, we'd love to have you come and visit us in the office. And I got my job with them and everything changed. My whole career changed because this conference really inspired me that, hey, I can do this. And that's where I am now.
Wow.
Woohoo! Yes.
That was not a
Yes.
sales pitch either. Like,
Yes. And you're an activist now, not an ally. Allies are wonderful. I've changed my title from ally to activist in the last couple of years myself. And because again, I realize there's a difference. An activist stands up, an activist, is out speaking, an activist is holding the space for conversations that people really don't want the space for. You do a lot of that. I mean, you have stood up and said some serious shit, lady.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that you have. And that was rough.
It's super
Touched
rough. Yeah, but it's needed. When you have us, you get any spotlight, you have a stage, your presence, you should not ignore the issues that are happening. Like, you're part of the problem. Being silent is part of the problem. It's understanding, what can I do? How do I pass this mic to you? And that's the most important thing at the end of the day, is hearing other people's stories. And then if they don't feel comfortable telling it, you tell that story. You protect them too. And that's really important.
Yeah. Wow. Isn't that powerful?
Yeah.
And that's what all of us are contributing to, every single one of us. I love it. All right. Next question. Let's do it. How much time do we have? Anybody know? Because I want to leave questions for all of you. And what do we got till 2:30, 2:20, 25? Okay. So I want to make sure we have time for questions. Okay. I might be skipping one. So those of you that have memorized the order, be prepared. I know your brains are that way. Mine is not. And therefore, I need to move to this one because I'm afraid of time. Do you think things are getting better for women and non-binary professionals in the workforce? And why don't you start, Sarah? Lisa, what the hell's wrong with me? You know, Sarah Hall is my best friend, so I call her Sarah all the time.
Sarah.
Lisa,
No.
tell us. I'm going to bring Sarah to this thing because I do it to you all the time. You're not even here. What do you think? Is it getting better?
Yes.
Why do you think that? I'm not going to let you stop with yes. Why?
I think just seeing this, right? I'm seeing it more and more. Yeah, I don't have much of an answer besides I definitely think it's getting better, and just purely by being a part of the community and yeah, seeing
Meaning
it
that
personally.
since the conversation has become public, which is really hashtag me too, right? We all know that that's the moment where there was even more. We were out doing our thing, those of us that have been activists and allies prior to that. In fact, Secure Diversity used to be called Brain Babe because the first thing we did was put women in, seats for knowledge and instead of booth babes at conventions. But anyhow, had to change the name because when hashtag 2 happened, it was just a lot of going on. But anyhow, my point is, yes, that brought the conversation out. It brought the good, the bad, and the ugly. And yet, if it's out, it's a much better world, for sure.
I totally agree. Also, I've been building teams for a while. So I think one of the Day of Securities a while ago, our panel was literally like how our security team was primarily women and non-white. So I was like, tell me about how we're doing.
Yeah, right. That wouldn't have happened 5 years ago. That didn't exist, so to speak. Certainly not a whole team. Yeah.
Of 20.
Yeah. Woo!
Like there were 3 of us and we're pulling the stat card.
Seriously. That is incredible. That is absolutely incredible. Yeah. And the people that supported you, I would imagine, were incredible people allowing all of that. That's rad. Yeah. Yeah. Having the space for the conversation makes a difference. So that's one thing. What do you got, Yogitha? What do you think? Do you think it's better out there?
It is. It is getting better, definitely.
We all know there's an underlying thing still there, which will come out. It'll come out. Don't worry.
And I'll talk about that.
Yes.
Okay.
Do it.
Okay, so where do I start? So there was I think it's a Harvard study. One of the, I don't remember. I read this some time ago, and this is actually why I ended up investing in one of the funds, VC funds, 2 funds actually. So there was a study that even about unconscious bias, right? About what are the, so they looked at all the questions. They studied the questions that the VCs asked male entrepreneurs versus female entrepreneurs, the difference in the questions. And the difference was that the male founders were asked positive questions, future oriented. Oh, what do you think will happen? Versus the female founders were asked, how are you going to do, what about this risk or that risk, right? So they were always, which made the female founders always defensive and had to defend everything, versus male founders are talking about, oh, this future, look at this rosy thing, right? So, and then the next part was even more interesting. What was interesting was they tried to see whether it was different and the outcomes were different if the VC was female, if the deciding partner was female. And the answer was no, because they were into the same culture. Unconsciously, they had adopted the same culture, right? So it wasn't really changing. This is a little now about 4 year back, I think, 3 4 years back. The study had come out. So things are, I'm hoping, have still changed since then, because as you see more women fund oriented funds and all of that. So I'm hoping that when someone does a study now, this will be different. And actually, but you know what? I'll reserve that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, let's, I can tell you that when I thought I would fund many years ago for CyberSN, I did not enjoy my experience at all. And I instead decided to use my own money, which in tech is a lot. And it was money I made in tech. And I made it for that reason. And I had done business with, at Rapid7 when we funded with Bain Capital, I was an executive and insurance policies on my life and all those things. I had men around me that were founders, and I was head of sales with good stock. That was different than being the founder, and the questions that I was being asked was such a turnoff that I'm like, I can't do business with you. Why are you? So I just decided to do it myself, and it was super risky and lots of sleepless nights of financially and all of those things.
Yeah.
So I would like to know myself, has that changed? That was 5 years ago. I don't know. And maybe when we get to the audience here, if anybody's got any stories, would like to hear them, that this is a problem.
And I hope that with more women, we will
Help each other.
c-
Yeah, I'm
create
going to start a
new
fund.
culture.
Yeah,
I
hell
hope
yeah.
we create new culture.
I don't know that we're going to create a new culture before we start funding, more, because there's just, I represent under 1%. Under 1% founding a tech company and a woman with own money. There isn't even 1% of us. And this is money I made in business, not family money, not any other place.
Yeah.
So, and millions, not, low dollars is what it takes to make tech companies. So I think that place is where things are still not happening.
Exactly. Less than 3% of the funding goes to women founders.
We got
0.3% to women minority founders.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And that's where it has to stop. And that's my next place myself, is funding and helping with that. It breaks my heart. So anybody that's out there can do anything about that, let's get involved. Right? Yes, because money is power.
Yep. Exactly right.
I mean, and we need to have more control over money.
Please put money where your mouth is.
Yes.
Is what I always say. I did that. I put my money into
Yeah.
VC,
And
woman-oriented
starting your
VC
firm.
funds.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I know. Self-funded right here. You're under the 1% too.
But this, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Chloe.
Is it getting better? I guess it depends in some ways. I think in some areas we are doing better for women. But I think that we're still very much failing non-binary folks. I think the thing is there's not a lot of research or researchers that are doing things on non-binary. So we don't really have a good idea what's going on for them. So it's hard to answer that question if it's getting better for them, when in reality, there's so much things that are happening in the world. And I think the saddest part, I would say, in our, in our space, is also outside in society, is that there are still a lot of women out there that don't accept trans women as women, and men that don't accept trans men as men, and don't even see non-binary as a valid gender, which is, it's disheartening to see. And for the organizations I know in cybersecurity that works with folks that are non-binary, they have been experiencing severe issues with getting funds and donations. As you're probably aware in the news, there are states right now that are doing anti-DEI work, trying to get rid of it, and also anti-ESG. And when these things happen, it impacts everyone, and including the industries. And that also concerns me because if you're a woman, like, we need to be supporting anyone who is not feeling like they belong, because we can understand that. We can understand because we've been in that place at some point. So if there's anyone around you that doesn't feel like they belong, we need to also be at their sides. And it can't be one of these things where we're not helping another group. We need to help one another in every single way possible, because if we don't stand up at this time, I'm worried that there's going to be more people leaving our industry if we don't start doing work together here.
Well said. Well said. It is very true that trans and non-binary professionals have less representation, so it's going to be even harder, right? We have less representation, so it's harder. So we have to come together. And I agree. I don't think, here's what I think. I don't know what I think. I think the hashtag Me Too gave us all a support system a bit for all of us to have each other and find each other and get the conversation out. And yeah, it's given us all that. And yet, what are the first people that call me during this economic shift, the being laid off? Women. Who calls me feeling like they are capped out and that they can never get an executive seat? Women. I mean, I never hear these conversations from men, ever. They never, and 90% of my business is men that, do business with my firm. So you would think if they were having these problems, when they would share it with me. They share job searching challenges, but it's not for the same reasons that we are. And I feel like there's this convenience of we're in the right place if it's the right time, and yet at the end of the day, people are still struggling with putting women in executive seats. And until that changes, what is it? Anybody know how many CEOs in tech that are women? Do you know what the percentage is? What do you think, it's over 10% or under 10%? Yeah. I mean, we don't have to, with the stats, the research, that's why I'm so big on it. It's still there. And everybody feels like there's a glass ceiling. So we've got to work to make a difference in that by how we show up and what we're bringing to the table to communicate and get past these barriers. We also need more help from regulation. I mean, it drives me crazy when people start blaming DEI, and it's like, I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for DEI regulations. Wouldn't even be able to vote. I wouldn't be able to have a checkbook, and wouldn't be able to buy a house. I mean, all these things that have just changed in the last 50 years, and I'm 53. So what the hell are you talking about?
The saddest part, though, is that it's even women pushing this for anti-DEI, anti-ESG, and that's it sucks
our poor sisters.
To see that kind of stuff.
I have sympathy for them. I've turned a lot of them. I only because they're usually the older generation that had to deal with such adversity that I think they've disconnected from it. At the end of the day, there's few of them, thankfully, and I think they can be, turned to join us all. It is so we still have a lot to do, and I don't like the putting it on the victim to solve it, and yet what choice do we have? We have to take it into ourselves. So the good news is we have each other. We can promote each other. We can teach men. We can grab all these male allies and help them help us. So we've got work to do is my point. Supreme Court, somebody get there, please. Please, please. All right, so we've got time for another question, and we'll open it up here. I know that each of you have your specific domains in security, and this is a security conference. So I'd like you to talk about the problems in your domain and what you're working on and share with everybody. So Chloe, you want to go first?
Sure. So I work in AI. Yes, the catchphrase, the buzzword, all it. But we have a massive problem, which is a lot of us in cybersecurity, we never learned anything about AI. We never learned about, how machine learning works, how they're built. So how do we protect companies? And the problem is right now is that there's a lot of knowledge gaps in this area. And that's the part where I ask for you to learn more about it. So their Hidden Layer has a report called the Threat Report. It came out earlier this year, which tells you everything and anything you need to know about securing AI. So if it's something of interest to you, please read it. It's not that long. It's very easy to digest. You don't have to be technical to understand what you're reading. But I think like the biggest gaps right now is the knowledge gap in this space. You know, a lot of people will keep repeating like prompt injections, chat GPT issues and all that, but there's a lot more serious issues. Um, because no one's in the space. There's like hardly anyone in security for AI space. So if you're looking to transition to any new space, I highly recommend looking into this particular space.
Awesome. Love it. Knowledge. Knowledge is power, and it's true. We need a lot more knowledge on AI. So I'm going to get that report.
Yeah. Com- yeah, completely agree. And ride the wave. Yeah, that's the wave. That's what is happening. So uh, just today I came across one research article just to further her this thing, a research article which talked about LLMs out there, how AI is being used by the bad guys and for day one vulnerabilities, okay, not day zero. So which is why I said I looked at that research, hit my inbox today. I was like, this is fantastic. This is why I started this company 2 years back, which is about secure by design, which is security day zero for cloud. And it doesn't matter whether you are a cloud infrastructure for AI or non-AI. Absolutely doesn't matter. I'm going to publish that report. That is,
I love it.
yeah.
Yeah. Cloud security. I mean, everything's in the cloud. So yeah. Yeah. And infrastructure level focus is brilliant too. I love it. Awesome. Lisa, what are you focused on?
My domain is like everything. It's like
True.
the
How about
CISO
now?
role of do all of the
True.
things.
That's true.
No, I think like learning is I'm going to coattail on that because I think it's really important no matter what. Like I've been doing this for, I don't know, 2 decades or something crazy. And I think you just always should be learning. There's always something new. Like AI is the thing right now. And, you know, it was moving to the cloud used to be the thing. So I think just being able to learn, and now there's so many resources too. Like you can just find so much literally just on YouTube and self teach, which I think is great. So just maintaining that mentality of just always be learning.
Yeah, and it's a great point that you make. To be a chief information security officer, you cover all domains. And so as an individual, you can have your own sort of where you came up through, but at the end of the day, it's everything. And so for those of you that are interested in that, know that you don't have to be one persona. It can be any of the personas that you came up through, and you can oversee it all. I love it. Okay. All right. So, how many people in the room are job searching right now or would like to be leaving where they're at? Okay, a good 50%. So, let's do some job searching advice. If you get one chance to give job searching advice, what's the number one thing you'd give? You want to start, Lisa? What would you say if you're job searching right now? What do you because you came out of searching recently, right? Please do, and I want you to.
I wrote them down.
Please do it. This is the important one.
I think the biggest thing I have to say is like find your people, give yourself grace. Like I said, I've been doing this in security for a really long time. This isn't my first CISO role. My network is how I've gotten most of my jobs. So it was new to me to like be networking again. And like I've always left a job for a job. So these are recent stats. And so I was like looking and talking. I applied for 186 applications, and granted, there aren't that many CISO roles. And I was like playing around with what kind of role I wanted. Out of 186, I had 34 recruiter chats. That's just the initial phone screen, 22 interviews with actual humans that are doing the jobs, and 97 of like not even an email that got back about not just in general, like, nope, this job's gone, nothing. 3 of those, they were like, oh, this position's kind of going away. We're not sure we want it. So I just wanted to share those stats. And also for full transparency, I did decline 6 of those. But I think that's also fair because it's finding the right match for you. And it's also like coming from a place of privilege of doing this so long. It's like first time in my life where I was like, I don't have to take the first job that's offered to me. This is amazing. What do I do with this? But overall, that's a lot I feel like for someone who's been doing this for a while. And also this mentality of yeah, you got to hang in there and find the right fit. And like, you don't just get promoted after a year. You don't just get handed the next job, and you have to really dig in and also go back to learning and kind of see how you want to market yourself and where you should be. So
I really appreciate you sharing that, because that I also took how long to go through all of that? Well,
I mean,
how
this
long
was
it?
also the first time in my life where I wasn't like scrambling for a job. So, but I pretty much took maybe a month or two off, and then I was like casually searching. So
Total amount of time that
that
it
I
took
was off.
until you
Oh,
picked this
oh
one?
gosh. That's a good question. I'd have to do the
I
math.
think it was 6 months.
Yeah, I think it was about 6 months.
I
Yeah.
remember. I remember. And so I would imagine, did any imposter syndrome at all happen to you while you were people ghosting or not responding, or were you past that at this point?
No, I was kind of past
Yeah.
it, but at usually when I get weird feedback, I'm just like, I don't want to work for you anyways. Like, I'll hear a lot of like, you come across
Yes.
too youthful, and I'm
Ah,
like,
what?
I'm probably not good for you anyways. So I'm more in that mindset now.
Oh
But when
my
I was
Lord.
younger and newer in my career, for sure, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like this is super painful. But now I'm like, nobody likes you anyways.
Yeah.
Good luck with that hire.
It's so true. I tell people all the time, be yourself. And if they don't like you, then they helped you not go to the wrong place. Right? And if they actually say that to you, you're too youthful? Was that what that said?
Means I talk like this
The
when I
hell?
talk to them, and I didn't like.
Oh, give me a break. I
I
can't
wasn't
even.
like, hello. I actually used to work at EY, and I don't give my EY like I'm talking to an executive, I just talk
Yeah.
like I'm from California.
Yeah, exactly. I'm from California too. We are a little bit casual. Hey, dude. Uh, I'd still do it. I don't care. Again, you don't like me? Great. We are privileged to say that at our ages today in our experience. However, I would argue that most of us could do this at any level nowadays, because there is a shortage and there is a gap. And I know it doesn't feel that way. It's just a broken system. So if you can stay true to yourself and you don't have to accept something, don't. If you do, we all get it. And we've all totally understand that. So that's a lovely, thank you for sharing that. Yogita, what would you say, Yogita, if anybody job searching right now?
Don't get dejected, even if there is no answer. Keep at it. It does take time. Uh, and it is very easy to feel as an imposter in the field of security, because there is so much ground to cover, and every area, like you may talk about application security with the engineering team. You may talk about infrastructure security with the operations team. You may talk about email security with the email team. And everybody expects you to be an expert in each of their areas. How is that even, possible? So it is very easy to think like that you are not in the right place in this space. Don't let that happen to you. Just know it is, you help them understand what your role is and what their role is. They are the experts in their areas, right? You give them a different lens on that area that they always think they know. That's one advice. As you go higher up, it is going to take even more time, even longer time. CISO search will take 6 months. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's very common at the executive
Yeah,
or
exactly.
director. Mhm.
Very common. In fact, 6 months is on the lower end.
Yeah.
It's actually fabulous. But it can easily take 9 months to 9 to 12 months as well. And do what you like. Do keep up. You will have to keep up, keep learning. Like AI, you have to learn a little bit, but also do what you like, honestly. Right? Whatever area you like within security, be an expert at it. Maybe write articles on that area. I mean,
Right.
I need to do that myself, and
Yeah,
I'm talking here.
too.
I need to
Research.
do, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Act as if. Be the expert you can if you want to. I love it. Chloe, what would you say?
Well, this is coming from a very introverted, shy person. That's not being sarcastic. I actually am really shy and introverted. Networking was definitely one of the things that helped me in my career. And I really struggled with that at the same time. So the thing that helped me a lot was always having a friend or knew someone that can go with me. So then I didn't feel so nervous, or not nervous, I just shy. Like I could give a talk in front of thousands of people and I don't feel anything. But right when I get off that stage, I become that hermit again where I just don't know how to talk to people sometimes. But I do recommend is to continue learning like she shared. That's really important. And, being unemployed or, between jobs is incredibly hard on mental health sometimes. So the thing that I kept doing was reading anything that would make me feel confident. And what I mean by that is like I've read so many articles about imposter syndrome and the history of imposter syndrome. That will empower you to find out the history of imposter syndrome. I think that's basically what I would do is just read, learn something new, and get outside my home, like take up some hobby, like go do something that is so different from what you would ever do just to keep you going, having interest while you're in this transition phase. And, you know, if you are in a hard place and you have an offer, you don't want to work there, I say still take the offer. Take the offer and continue to look until you find something that fits you well.
Yeah.
Yeah, thinking about the hobby, I would put on my favorite song and dance.
Yeah. I think about this a lot, of course, and one of the things I put out there is, you know, especially if you've had some experience contracting. In fact, I think you did, Chloe. Did you I introduced you to
Yeah.
where you're currently at, right? And you started as a contractor, right?
Well, not at Hidden Layer, but I started at a different company as a contractor. But you did give me I was doing consulting on the side, and yeah, you introduced me to some people too.
Yeah, yeah. So anyhow, my point is more to say that, sometimes it takes a contract experience to get to know each other and then it turns into perm. So while you're interviewing, if you can see work that you can get done for this employer, pitch it. Let's say, hey, I know you're looking for perm, and I really realize if you just get this done, I could do this as a contractor for you, and we can keep talking about the rest. So I know, again, it's putting on us to figure this shit out. But at the end of the day, it does work. If you can get in on contract, and so it's that whole try and buy thing in recessions, which we are in, don't listen to the news, contract goes up. So perm's kind of dead, literally, and contract is way up because it's a different budget and it's write-off dollars and all kinds of things, right? So think about contract. Think about creating a contract gig for yourself as you're talking to people. And I think that can also just help you have financial some support while you're searching for the home. You also get to try and buy, right? There's a lot of opportunity in contract work right now. Awesome. All right, so let's open it up. Questions, thoughts, comments. I'll give this microphone. Yeah.
So this is my first year, very first time with Security. It's amazing. Thank you so much. I belonged to Women in Localization before, but it was very different. So I'll have to say that I think here, Security, I think that we feel more empowered because of what we do, right? Matters. And in cyber, we say in our business is that a cyber attack is a business risk. And that is why we're here. So I am always curious to think from the inside out and in your positions, the executives. This facade about, the male leaders, the CEOs, the CTOs, the CISOs, et cetera. What is it really like now that you're in this position? Is it all that makes it out to be so complicated, so fearful, or who do you really report to?
You want to take that, Sarah? I mean,
It's just Sarah now. No, it's just Sarah. If anybody calls me Lisa, I'm gonna be like, I don't even know who you're talking
who
about.
the hell am I talking to? Lisa, talk to us.
I
Jesus.
generally have reported to CTOs just from this as a technology kind of also enjoying being embedded in engineering. But I I think nothing has really surprised me. I don't think it's been like, this is so different, but I also think people are just people. Like your CEO, it's just a person. Like I'm just a person. And so I think kind of having that mentality anyways probably didn't help me. But yeah,
Have your bosses been men?
yes, actually, when I first got into security, my boss was a woman. She was a woman CISO. She is. She's not a CISO anymore, but she's still alive. That sounded
Right,
like,
right.
um,
And the rest are men.
and yes, ever since then, I've reported 2 men.
Yeah. So that's all she knows. And she made it work. So yeah, I think, the question of what is it like when you get to the top and how are people treating you and all that good stuff. I think
I have lots of
you've,
stories if you want to get wine
yeah,
sometime.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the happy hour
Yeah, that's the
here.
after
Let's talk
story
about
about
that.
people taking this work you do and putting their
Yes.
name on it.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. That's happy hour. Who's got another question, comment? Anybody? Yes. Here you go.
You. So this is a little scrambled, but I'm Vitasha. I have a question about like how do you transition between an ally to an activist? Because I feel like, and this is going to be a little raw, so forgive me. I feel like being an activist is a privilege, a position of privilege. And as a Black woman, I never thought that I could be an activist because I don't have the same ability to like speak up and take up space where maybe I'm not wanted or my voice is not heard. So it's like, for context, I went to Smith College, super feminist like school, and everyone there is like, one of the questions was, can you be a feminist and be like a Black woman? Are you afforded that same privilege? So I'm just like, I don't know, my mind's just kind of spinning right now. I'm just trying to figure out like, I do want to give back and I want to be able to help other people that are not seen. Like I've never seen like a Black CEO, like it's like a badass woman just doing engineering stuff. And I'm very in the thick of like infrastructure and engineering and security and all of that. And how do I sort of like give back and become more of an activist rather than just like a face where they can like look up to is, yeah.
So Jules Okafor, she goes, Jules is her name. She keynoted yesterday. She's a Black founding CEO. She's a badass, and let's get you connected. And also Cybersecurity has a focus on people of color, and I'm on their board, and I want to help you get more role models too. Not that white women aren't role models, but we all know that's different. We all know that our sisters of color have it worse. So I want to do that. For me, going from an ally to an activist was being able to say whatever the hell I think and not give a shit. And that was hard. I run a company. I wonder all the time how many men maybe don't do business with my firm because of the shit that I put on LinkedIn. Now I'm very careful about my language and I'm super inclusive and all those things. I worry about that and I'm now in success. So maybe that's why I went from ally to activist recently because I have more power and feel better about it. But that's what it is for me, is the willingness to be more aggressive with solving this problem. And so it really can be just whatever feels best for you, and nobody should judge each other. It is very difficult to put ourselves out there. I mean, somebody posted on my day of security post the other day, some person that said, trying to say DEI is destroying the world. Didn't you see what happened at Boeing? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to comment. And nobody in the community even commented. So I thank you all because that conversation doesn't even worth the conversation. I'm not even going to go there. And yet that can come at you when you become an activist. And I'd say, there's more of us to back you if it's needed. And so if you're out there and you want to put your stuff out there or you tag me, I'll back you. You tag any of these ladies, they're going to back you. There's a lot of powerful people between Secure Diversity, which runs Dave Security, Cybersecurity, WeSys, Cyberjitsu, Women in Cybersecurity. I mean, we are a team. You want to become an activist, just start tagging us and we'll protect you. All right? For sure. Yes, please do. For sure.
I would say that one of the things to consider is that you don't have to be an activist all the time. It comes in waves of when you feel safe to be one. I've gotten a lot of like death threats sometimes. And so I got off of social media for quite some time. Not just that, but like bullying and all that. And that sucks because what that is trying to do is for you to minimize yourself, minimize your voice. And unfortunately, I'm one of those people that will minimize every time because I worry about safety. So, I mean, there are ways how to be an activist where you're not having to be out loud in front of people, but behind scenes. A lot of the work I do now is more behind scenes than the forefront to try to stay safe. And maybe that might be something where I think you're already doing that right now by asking such a question, It doesn't always have to be public. A lot of activism happens behind doors.
Super true, especially if you can. Oh, I'm getting the sign that we're over. But especially if you can, get behind the scenes technically and take on some of these people that are causing problems with their technical experiences. You can be an activist in that way. And I know lots of people I can connect you with on that too. I wish we could talk all day. Ladies, thank you so much for the wonderful dialogue and for bringing your vulnerability and your knowledge and your time. And thank you all for joining. I'm so glad everybody's having a great experience. I ask you to spread the word. We're going to keep this free. It's something that I will never allow not to happen, and it's hard. So any of your companies want to get involved, tell them about us. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day. More talks coming.